This is your last chance. You take the blue pill, you get a life and stop wasting time reviewing movies on the internet. Take the red pill, you stay in podcasting and continue to analyze every detail of old movies for years to come.
What a fantastic beginning!
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Hey, a movie! Yeah, we're gonna be a movie!
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that is for us to happily.
Hey, a movie!
We can watch it all develop.
Starring everybody!
And me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear. Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
Tonight on Hey a Movie, we will be reviewing 1999's The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, and Carrie-Anne Moss.
Oh, good. There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see.
Hey, a movie! Is there any way to stop it?
Starring everybody.
Everybody, yes!
Me.
Welcome to Hey a Movie, the podcast where two Christians review Hollywood movies and discuss if their spiritual themes are biblically accurate. I'm Chris Bastide.
And I'm Martin Glenn.
Hey, Martin,
Yes.
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, sure you do.
Ex-Kempo and Taekwondo.
I know.
Well, all right. Well, welcome to Hey a Movie, and tonight we're reviewing The Matrix, a movie that came out when we were in high school, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and movie
I-
at the
Yeah,
time.
I graduated in 2000, and you graduated in 2001, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the preview for the sequel, for the first sequel, sophomore year of college, in my suite watching the Super Bowl with my suite mates.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a particular time in my life. So, Martin, before we get started, would you please grace us with your summary?
So, the Matrix is an exploration of the deep-rooted sense that we have that the world that we're living in is not the real world, and the physical material that we are surrounded with isn't real physical material, as if we're all living in some kind of deep illusion that we cannot escape from, and ever shall we do. And also how we're all just sort of watching shadows dance upon the cave wall. So that's the sense of the film, I think. Oh, and also there's kung fu and cell phones.
There is Kung Fu.
and lots
And a
of
bunch
cell
of other
phones.
stuff. And cell phones. Yeah. You know, watching the movie back, because I haven't watched this in a while, one thing that kept occurring to me is, how did they get out of the Matrix now?
Yeah. Who has landlines anymore?
I know. I mean, some businesses, but like you can't go into someone's house anymore.
No.
So
Even then, just the like you watch it now, the like cell phones were so slick and so cool when they came out, when the movie came out, and now it's just like, that's not even a smartphone. Like,
yeah, here's a square.
yeah. Oh yeah,
So,
and like modern smartphones, they don't look nearly as cool as the old as the old phones did. But
do you still
they
have
do a
that
lot more.
phone that you got because you wanted to pretend you were on Star Trek?
No, I don't have that anymore.
Oh, you finally got rid of that phone?
Yeah, like over a decade ago, man.
No, I'm talking about the smartphone with the flip cover
Oh
and the
yeah, I know.
styling.
Yeah, but
Um,
no, my the phone I have now is a wallet phone. So
oh, okay. And you still can't text worth a darn on it.
I cannot. My fingers are. I have sausages.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do a quick review. What are your memories? Where did you first see the movie?
I don't remember when I first saw the movie, but I remember when I first heard of the movie. First job I ever had was actually a door-to-door salesman job for some sort of political thing that they were trying to raise money for. I don't remember what it was. I didn't really believe in it either. It was just they promised that I could make a lot of money, and it was my towards the end of high school, and I'm just like, oh sure, I'll go and make money doing this. I didn't make a dime doing it, probably because I didn't believe in the product. In fact, I ended up getting a heat stroke
I
walking
was
around
just wondering if
neighborhoods.
you could tell that story.
Yeah, yeah. It
So,
was hot. It was summer. I wasn't drinking enough water, and I got heat stroke, and I needed to go into an ambulance. And that was my last day of this job. However, before my last day of this job, there was a guy about, hey, did you hear about the Matrix? Like, no. He's like, oh, this new movie, it really messed up your head. Like, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Are there
And
redeeming values? Oh no, it just mess you up.
hmm,
Okay. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, but I love the film, and it was people today. I don't think they like younger kids probably don't realize what kind of phenomenon
do 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 do.
the movie was at the time. I mean, it was absolutely everywhere. It changed the way that people talked about movies, and and it was being parodied right and left and up and down, and
That's
it,
true. I mean,
it,
one
it
of the Austin Powers sequels had the rope fighting thing, and
yeah.
Come here, yeah! Prepare for the ultimate wire fighting maneuver. I just hope my wire fighting team is ready.
But it also encouraged people to talk about the Bible because the Christian symbolism, which we are going to get into,
oh yes,
was very overt. It was very, very overt. Um,
it wasn't at all subtle. I mean, 3 minutes
mm,
into the movie, when he's helping the guy out in his apartment, um he
I
calls him
hear my
his
own
own
personal
personal
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's like, okay.
to have a character
Fun
named
fact about
Trinity.
that. That's true. And yes. But they also had somewhere in a script or something, they actually answered what he was helping that guy with. Whatever he did that was illegal was to wipe out like parking tickets or something.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
That's
you get the impression from the way he talks about it, like he was, I don't know, like, embezzling millions or something. Nope, just trying to get out of parking tickets.
that's disappointing, actually.
It's probably good that they cut that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did not see the first movie in theaters. I think I saw the second two with you. But the first
Maybe.
movie, I didn't see it until it came out on video. The kids back before everything was streaming or even on Blu-ray and or DVD, you used to have to get these big square rectangle things. And yeah, but I do remember that the summer I worked at the video store, at the video rental store, because also kids, you couldn't just sign onto your TV and rent a movie. You actually had to go somewhere, interact with people, and hope that the movie you wanted hadn't already been rented. Uh,
Now,
so
now,
I
sound,
so I
sound like an old
remember,
fuddy duddy.
yeah, but I do remember doing a back-to-back a couple times on a Saturday. The guy who was the assistant manager of the video store and I were always together on Saturdays. And so we would be there from like 11 until close together, and we'd always do trilogy days on Saturdays. So we'd do, Back to the Future. We'd just marathon the 3 Back to the Futures because I didn't work at Blockbuster. So I wasn't stuck with that loop of previews. We could put whatever we wanted on. There were only 2 rules. I had to be reasonably appropriate for a family audience. And
Naturally.
if a customer really wanted to rent the movie you were putting on, and it was the last copy, if it was a new release, you had to let it and put something else on. So yeah, we did Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
I don't know if we can. I've tried to come up with something we could do with Back to the Future, and I got nothing.
Yeah,
But we did that. We did the Karate Kid trilogy. We did Star Wars, of course, and then one Saturday we did the original and the sequel because Revolutions hadn't come out yet. And so I remember that, and I remember seeing the 2 sequel movies in theaters and being disappointed by them because technology, they couldn't level up from that technology fast enough, and so a lot of those fight scenes ended up being what back then would have been pretty good video game graphics, but it wasn't as the original.
Especially the fight with the multiple Smiths in the daylight.
Yeah, that
has not. It's not just that it hasn't aged so well. They didn't look great at the time.
Right. So I don't have a storied history with it. I did watch it back, and I was less impressed with the special effects and the computer animation than I was originally. And I'm someone, and you know this about me, Martin, I'm somebody who appreciates steps in the chain. Like, it's not a matter of, this movie isn't as good as what we have now, so it's crap. Like,
it's like I'm watching Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn in African Queen, and suddenly just throw a bunch of black dots on the screen all over the place, and then they say, "Oh, we're being attacked by flies," and I just think, cool.
How'd they do that?
Those are flies, right? And then I move on. Yeah,
right. And I appreciate the steps movies took in special effects. I mean, we once had a discussion about, like, okay, in the special effects world, like, what started all this? What was the, we compared it to firearms, and we said, so what was the invention of the catapult? And I think we landed on the original King Kong film, which was all King Kong was stop motion, and it looked better than the remake in the 70s where they had a robot.
Yeah. Stop motion was very effective. It was a very effective.
Yeah, technique. It worked really well. It looked really good.
It still looks good. Have you seen Kubo and the 2 Strings?
No.
Such a good movie. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
So, and then you get ahead, and then the next big leap forward, there was a lot of in the horror genre, certainly. I made a joke about Jack Pierce to you, and you said, who's Jack Pierce? Jack Pierce was the genius makeup artist behind the Universal Monster movies, which I have loved since I was a young child. And the way he did things like the Wolfman transformation, where it was stop motion with a live person. Yeah, it was with a live person, and he was just literally sticking yak fur on Lon Chaney. But this doesn't age as well as a stop. And I feel like the reason it didn't age as well is because there was an element of playing with toys. Like, this is my new thing, and I'm so excited about it, with bullet time and all that sort of stuff, that, when Star Wars was made, it was just a matter of, I want this to look good, I'm
not sure I agree with that.
Well, anyway, by the way, those who watched last week's episode, we did mention that when we recorded that, the World Series was going on, and Game 7 of the World Series is still going on right now. As
Right
a matter
now.
of fact, yeah, right now, as we speak, and just, by now, by the time this is released, the series is over and the parade's already happened. But as of right now, the Blue Hats are up 3-1. So,
What
so
inning?
that's where we are. So that gives you an idea of what time we're rooting this thing.
And this is also on All Saints Day when we're recording this. And I'm
Yes.
someone who passionately believes in All Saints Day because it's Christian Memorial Day. And it's the day we're supposed to remember those who sacrificed their lives for the church. And it's sort of like an analogy that I made is like, it's sort of imagine that on the day before Memorial Day, we have a large celebration about Russia for some reason that we do every year, and that and we emphasize that over actual Memorial Day. That's sort of what it feels like to me.
Well, except for the fact that Halloween was never what pop culture tells you it's supposed to be. I watched a video today it was never that. And
Yeah, and it
most of
never was.
it never was about that. And most of the traditions that came out of it had nothing to do. There's no sources that actually support the argument that they came from pagan rituals. They were just folk traditions. And they were just various folk traditions.
Is like the video you watched the one that I shared on Facebook?
I don't know. I haven't been on Facebook today.
With Michael Jones?
No. I don't know. Is that the Inspiring Philosophy guy?
Yeah, that's the Inspiring Philosophy guy. Yeah.
Oh, then yes. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
he has several.
Oh yeah, he has. He has several, but he put one out this year. But yeah, so we have to get back to the Matrix. So let's get back to the Matrix.
Yes, let's talk about the Matrix.
On the special effects. I think that what they were actually trying to do is have a stark contrast between what things felt like in the Matrix and the way that things felt like in the real world, because they didn't have any of the special effects when they're in the real world environment. So there's no bullet time there. There's none of that there. All of the special effects were when they were in the Matrix. So I think they were being overt for the purpose of style and for the purpose of storytelling. So I don't have a problem. I don't think it was just, hey, look at the shiny toy. But they were able to do something that's like, hey, look at the shiny toy because this is about shiny toys. So I'm not sure if I agree with your critique there. I actually think that the special effects in the first movie aged fine. I don't have any problems with it. I'm certainly not blown away by it like I was when I was younger, because we've seen other stuff like that since. So I'm no longer impressed. But I still think that it's good special effects. I think it adds to the storytelling and doesn't detract from it. And I don't think it's distracting. I think it does what it's supposed to do. So I have nothing but good things to say about it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I did also find a few plot holes in the just the technology of it all. Not big ones, small ones. Like the agents are plugged in to the entire system in a way that they can literally hop from place to place across continents, whatever they need to do to catch up with somebody. And yet somehow in the opening couple of scenes where we've got Neo at work, they're somehow confused by a cubicle wall and they can't find him. They couldn't just do a quick Google search or whatever they did in the system and where he was, which is something they can do if they can simply appear where a person is. If they're chasing someone, they can just simply turn into, the woman in the red dress or whatever. And yet they can't find him behind a cubicle wall.
I mean, in terms of not being able to find him behind the cubicle wall, I mean, like, we do actually see that their capacity to interact with the Matrix is tied to their earpiece. So they have to actually interact with the earpiece in order to do those kinds of searches and to order to hear what's going on. So it's not as if they have an intuitive mental connection to the to the actual program. They have to actually interact with this interaction piece. We actually see Agent Smith take it off when he's interacting with Morpheus, when he's torturing him, really. And then when the other guys come in, like, what are you doing? Have you not heard? Like, oh, he hasn't heard because this thing wasn't on, so he didn't know what was going on. So I don't think that's quite as strong as you think it is. But let me steel man it, because I do think that your basic point has merit. Why couldn't they? Like, why do they have to go to his place of business at all? Why don't they just find Neo himself, then become like take over Neo's body, then jump out a window, and then transfer themselves to somewhere else, and then he goes splatting around?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's significantly easier. Why do they have to actually physically catch him at all? Well,
Right.
actually, even there,
Even then, they didn't know.
that too, actually.
You know what? I got an answer for that, though. At that point, according to Morpheus, anyway, they didn't know who he was or how important he was.
Right? Yeah.
And they were using him as bait to capture Morpheus.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, I thought that the moment after I said everything. So
and then
I don't
once
think,
he was up, then he would have had some ability to say this isn't real or do whatever. So let's this movie is definitely intended to be an allegory. So let's just run through the major characters and say who are they meant to be an allegory for. Obviously, Neo is meant to be a messiah figure,
right? And you can make the point about his name being Anderson. I think that's
yes. So there is a incorrect internet theory out there that the name Anderson comes from son of Andrew. You know, that's where a lot of those last names came from. But that it came from a Greek word that supposedly means man. And so it's supposed to mean, so the idea is that it supposedly means son of man. Unfortunately, that's not correct. If that was their intention, great, but they still used it wrong, because the Greek word it came from is more of an adjective, as in that person is manly, not that person is a man.
Right. And also the noun andros means more male than human.
Attention,
andros,
Calvinists. The following segment contains the
actual
biblical
word for
viewpoint that God
human
wants
would
all
be
people to be
anthropos.
saved. You know,
Right.
like the Bible says, reformed discretion
Which-
advised.
You know, I like to bring up all the time whenever I get into arguments with Calvinists about 1 Timothy 2, because the Greek literally says that God desires pos anthropos to be saved. All mankind. God desires all mankind to be saved. Try and make that into all kinds for me. All kinds of mankind? There's only one kind of mankind. So, yeah, doesn't work.
No.
Doesn't work.
All right,
Stop trying to rationalize and just believe the Bible, people.
You also have
okay,
his name Neo, and he also has the name Neo, and Neo means new. So it's saying that he's the new man or the new Adam. So you have that going on there.
It's also an anagram for one.
Yeah, it is. So it's
so let's talk about some of the other characters.
Jesus.
Yeah,
he is
Jesus,
supposed to be Jesus Christ.
There's also some people have theorized that the first name Thomas, you know, because he has doubts at the beginning and then believes. So that has been theorized. So other characters that we have in this movie that are important, we have Morpheus, who I would say to be a John the Baptist analog.
Interesting. I mean, certainly the mirror scene is supposed to be a baptism scene.
Yes.
Though his name is like the god of dreams, which is because he wakes people up. That's sort of the idea of it.
Gotcha. I didn't dig that deep into the research. Obviously, Cypher is Judas. Yes.
Yep, his Jewish character. I think Trinity is supposed to represent the Holy Spirit, maybe, or maybe Mary
maybe.
Magdalene. But my suspicion is more Holy Spirit. I don't really see Mary Magdalene in her. Other than you have people who think that Jesus got married to her, but that's he didn't. That is silly. Didn't happen. But
Considering that comes from a 14th century forgery.
Yeah, but her name is Trinity, so that suggests that she's supposed to be a divine figure in her representation, and thus I kind of associate her with Holy Spirit.
Okay. So we're gonna have to draw on the sequels, unfortunately, a little bit. But to my mind, in the sequels, it says that the Oracle is the mother of the Matrix and the architect is the father, which is where I think the movie became, got into Gnostic.
But you think that's where they got into Gnostic?
Well, they got into Gnosticism way before that, but they really cribbed it there. They really got into Gnosticism because you have the
We
evil
interrupt this segment to demonstrate how men express friendship through chop busting.
And then you have the Oracle as the good God of the New Testament. Now, they're the same God, folks.
Very Manichean.
Yes. Manichean, you mean?
Yeah, you know what? I only read it. I don't really say it very often. I'm not committed to a pronunciation.
We now return to our regular
that's happened
movie
a handful
review.
of times in our friendship. I'm still trying to remember the first one, but I'm pretty sure you said something was a big facade. Okay. Right. Other characters, Smith. I mean, is Smith meant to be Satan, demons. I assume, or a demon? Well, the agents are demons.
Yeah.
But is he he's the head demon?
I don't think he was intended to be originally. He maybe he is in the sequels, but in the original one, he's just the demon that they're dealing with the most. But he doesn't seem to be like a Satan figure. And this also, I'll have to actually go into the actual. I don't know which Gnostic perspective the Wachowskis were actually drawing from the most, whether it was the Manichaeans or whether it was
I was more Docetism, honestly. Possibly. The
What's
real
one
world is
with
evil.
V?
I don't know.
Yeah, but it's
yeah. So it's. I mean, it's not. I guess the question I think ask is this a? They're trying very hard to do a gospel. I forgot the word. Movie is definitely intended to be an allegory. Lion the Witch, the Wardrobe. C.S. Lewis always says it's not quite a not an analogy. Somebody call in and tell us.
Yeah, Tolkien always said that he hated them. Anyway, I think at least what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, it's not a genuine Christian, that word.
No.
Now I'm going to look it up.
Allegory, that's what it was.
There we go. Okay.
But yeah, it's not an allegory for the Bible, it's an allegory for the Gnostic sentiment.
Yeah, and
I think an actual more important perspective to have is Plato's The Cave.
Yeah, there was definitely some Platonism in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually think that's the centrality of it, right? Because for those who don't know, Plato's The Cave was an analogy that he used. That imagine, if you will, you have a group of people who live in a cave and have always lived in that. and there's a light that shines into the cave, and it casts shadows upon the wall. So there are several things that the people in the cave had seen before. They had seen a deer, they had seen a bear, they had seen other people, but only as shadows that walked by the cave. They never saw what they really looked like. And then you have this one man who leaves the cave and then sees all the other people and goes like, "Oh, this is what these things really are. That's what a deer really looks like. That's what a bear really looks like." And then he returns to the cave and tries to explain, no, these shadows are mere shadows. That's like, let me explain to you what a deer really is. And then they responded to him going, no. I know what a deer is. That's a deer. Like, I've seen it before. No. That's not really a deer. A deer is really this three-dimensional thing. And they wouldn't believe him. So the idea here is that the cave is the matrix, and the shadows are these constructs that the matrix creates for us to see things. But the real world is the real, the land of the real, as Morpheus calls it, or what I think calls it the Valley of the Real.
Too. Yeah, and here's the interesting thing: the real world sucks.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I almost understand to a point why Cypher would want to go back to that, and be like, I mean, as far as
trading soggy oatmeal for steak, I get that.
Totally, yes, 100%. Every day I'll make that choice.
I mean, Dozer and Tank, they had never had steak. They don't know what they're missing.
Right.
But the other guys, they know exactly what they're missing.
Exactly. And there is a hidden joke, a little nod against, or kind of a ding against one of my personal heroes, where he's in there having this meeting, and the conversation about, I want to, I don't want to remember anything, and I want to be someone important, like an actor.
Like an actor.
And Smith's response is, "Whatever you want, Mr. Reagan." Doesn't want to remember. They call him Mr. Reagan. Doesn't want to remember anything. Someone important, like an actor, Mr. Reagan. Edit that. Kind of a jerk thing to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to start with discussion, though. We can touch on Cypher a little bit as a apostate.
Right, and actually the nice thing about Cypher as part of the allegory is that he's one of the most accurate aspects of that allegory, because he pretty much plays the role of Judas perfectly. I mean, this
is a big debate that goes on, and I think people take it. I think people who fall into the eternal security blanket crowd, which tells you where we land, but we're Arminians, so but we're also,
which, by the way, C is not the opposite of land. Vice President of C is Society of Evangelical Arminians. So, and I think land is an acronym for landishly atrocious nightly dressing. I don't know. I'm not sure what land is supposed to stand for.
I don't know what landishly means, so. But I am wearing a Top Gun hoodie and polar bear pajamas, so.
Oh, there we go.
It's more outlandish than whatever that word you said was.
I think I said lavishly. Didn't I say lavishly?
Oh, did you? Okay.
I don't know. We'll go back and watch the recording.
And so we do
the
have
following segment contains a discussion about the genuine possibility of a believer abandoning their faith, something that the Bible repeatedly warns about. Calvinist and eternal security discretion advised.
I think he was. I think Judas was out there doing miracles along with the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was.
Especially when John was saying what he had found out after the fact about stealing from the money purse and all this sort of thing, yeah, that would have come up. Oh, and by the way, Judas was the only one who never did any healings when Jesus sent us out 2 by 2. That probably would have come up. John, by that point, had no problem throwing people under the bus. Granted, the people he was throwing under the bus were largely dead.
Well, he also threw Peter under the bus when it comes to his running ability.
That's true. I have a theory about Peter and John. First of all, they'd known each other for years, and I feel like, they were both fishermen on the same sea. There seemed to have been a previous relationship between Peter and Andrew and the sons of Zebedee.
Because they helped Peter with the fish,
the catch of fish, right?
Yeah.
So there seems to have been some previous relationship between the two, and then also in Acts we twice see them together preaching, and so I think the whole sending them out 2 by 2 thing, I don't think that ended with the ascension. And that was one of the reasons why it was important that Matthias take Judas's office, was because, somebody, Bartholomew or somebody, lost his preaching buddy. One of the remaining 11 had lost the person he went out 2 by 2 with to preach.
No, I'm not so sure about that, because what we see in Acts, we see Peter is by himself. We see Philip is by himself.
When is Peter by himself? Joppa was later.
But, the main example that we have is Philip, and Philip is by himself when he's with the Ethiopian eunuch.
Yeah, but he wasn't out purposely preaching. He was just walking down the street, and the eunuch was there reading. So it was a slightly different story. I'm not saying they always followed the buddy system.
Okay.
I don't remember the Ethiopian eunuch story being a public preaching. It was he came upon the Ethiopian eunuch who was reading Isaiah.
I remember God drew Philip to the Ethiopian eunuch.
It's possible. I'm just saying there was a practice of that. And we do see Peter and John. Anyway, to my theory, I think Peter and John may have been the 2 by 2 that went out together when Jesus sent them, because we then see the two of them later preaching together. And then we also know they're together again. Gee, it's good to be together again. When Paul comes back, however many years later, in Acts. And I did the math on that, by the way. When Paul talks about that in Galatians, that would have been right around 50 AD, which is, the math on that would put it right around the Jerusalem Council, where he came back to meet with the apostles.
It's good to be together again. I just can't imagine that you've ever been gone. It's not starting over, it's just going on. It's good to be together again.
Because the first time he met, when Barnabas came and found him, so Barnabas was sent to Antioch to go find Paul and say, what's going on with this guy? First he was killing us, then he disappeared for years. Now he's back and he's one of us. Go see what's going on. And they sent Barnabas to do that. And then Barnabas brought him to Jerusalem, which at that point, apparently, he met with Peter, James, the brother of Jesus, and that's it. And then the second meeting, whatever it was, 14 years later, he met with Peter, James, the brother of Jesus, and John. So those three were there. And so those were the three he met with. So again, there's some correlation. So the point is, I think when John was throwing Peter under the bus, he was kind of almost nudging his old pal more than.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what he was doing.
The bus all the time.
And I do thank you for that lengthy explanation. I think we needed all of the background for that point. But
no problem.
Yeah,
what are we talking about?
We were talking about Judas.
No problem.
Yeah,
what are we talking about?
Talking about Judas. Let me Let me read a passage. This is from the book of John, chapter 17, starting with verse 11. And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, and that they may be one as we are one. While I was with them, I protected them in your name that you have given me, and I guarded them, and not one of them was lost except the one destined to be lost, so that the scripture might be fulfilled. But now I am coming to you, and I speak these things in the world so that they may have my joy and be made complete in themselves. So you might say, like a Calvinist would probably focus in on the language that he was destined to be lost. I'm sure that's where the Calvinist goes with that. But the thing is that it's also very, very clear in the text that Judas was given to Jesus, not just simply to walk around with him, but he is one of the ones that was given to him, which means that he was, in my eyes, I think it's very clear that it means that he was, in fact, a believer. He was a real believer. And the idea that he was destined to be lost is Jesus explaining this is the only reason why he was. Like, I didn't lose him accidentally. I lost him because he was destined to be lost. But he was originally had, right? He was originally in the fold. He was one of them. And there's also the debate about what his motives were.
And by the way, if we can I just point out one more thing? The NIV actually says, all this I have told you that you will not fall away. So that's a critical point that, and I'd have to check the Greek on that. It kind of is possible for a true believer to fall away. The other thing you should notice is so
it's very, very hard.
Oh yes, it's incredibly hard. That's another thing. You don't lose your. That's why I get so mad when people say the phrase "lose your salvation." No one loses their salvation. I think the orange analogy works really well. When I eat an orange, the piece of fruit, I don't lose the peel. I deliberately throw it in the trash. Or, by the way, this is just a pro tip, folks. This is a tip I've given on other podcasts before, but if you have a garbage disposal, don't throw the orange peel in the trash. Throw the peel in the garbage disposal and run it. It'll clean the blades. It'll make the drain smell great. Just a pro tip. It's really useful.
Yeah, it's a major life hack. Yeah,
it is, and it smells nice. But
it does.
The thing is when I'm done, when I've taken the peel off the orange, and it's done keeping my fruit fresh, I'm saying I don't need this anymore, so I will discard it. In the case of an orange,
you want it for some zest or something.
Right. In the case, usually with zest, you use it right off the fruit. You don't. Pretty much homemade potpourri is the only reason you would do that. I think I'm right when it comes to an orange. And the other analogy I like to use to explain how apostasy works, you'll hear some of the OSAS crowd will say, they'll use the analogy of an airplane. I have to choose to board an airplane, but once I'm on the airplane, I'm going where the pilot wants to go.
That is jump out the door.
Exactly. That is almost always true. And here's the thing. Our plane is the Holy Spirit, and it never crashes. Our pilot is Jesus Christ. He never crashes. You are not, and not only that, our pilot is kind and loving and good. If you spill your drink mid-flight one too many times, he's not going to chuck you off the plane. And if you trip on the way back from the restroom, the plane is more than sturdy enough to hold you in there. You're not going to fall out of the plane. However, what rarely happens is some gloriously deluded moron will decide mid-flight that he doesn't need an airplane to fly. And so mid-flight, he will wrestle open the emergency door, which based on physics is really hard. It takes a very deliberate effort of will to open that while the plane is in the air. It's not designed to open while the plane's in the air. It's designed to open when the plane crashes in an ocean or something. The turbulence and the airflow, it's going to make that very difficult. But the person somehow manages to wrestle the door open and jumps out of the plane while flapping their arms 15,000 feet over Denver. That's apostasy. And I want you to think about how hard that would be to do. And what we're saying is that Jesus will not tackle you and duct tape you to a chair.
No, he won't.
Now, if you're halfway down and say, "Oh my gosh, I've made a mistake, please take me back," I wish Jesus, I want to be in your plane again. You're back in your seat. But
I have some passages from Hebrews I have to quote to you. Because
I think the reason we have the OSAS thing, I think it goes back to altar call culture. I think there are people like you and I whose salvation story is not dramatic. We weren't, about to shoot heroin in a gutter or anything like that. I shared on the C channel my story of how'd you meet Jesus was kind of like how'd you meet your grandparents. They were always around, and then at some point I realized, okay, these aren't just familiar faces. I love them. I have a relationship with them. Like, I kind of just figured out. I didn't so much have a hard and fast decision moment in that sense as realized I already truly genuinely believe this stuff. I genuinely truly trust in Jesus, and I learned to trust in Jesus the same way I learned to trust my parents, the same way I learned to trust my grandparents. They were always there.
Very similar to me, yeah.
And I think in the altar call culture, and especially when you have the things like, well, come up and recommit your life and that stuff. Were you there? I think you were when the Billy Graham crusade came to Rochester. It was right before I met Kristen. And it was Franklin because Billy had gone on to glory at that point. And like, I was paying attention, and like some of the people who went there, I noticed one of the people sitting near me had his arms in the air during the music. And it's like, are you just going down there because you want to have this emotional experience? Because you don't need to tell yourself that you apostatized. There's a difference between backsliding and apostasy. Backsliding is like falling off the wagon on your diet and you eat like crap for 3 days. It's not. Yeah. It's like your sanctification went backwards.
And here's the thing about altar calls. I'm not actually opposed to altar calls as a technique. There's nothing inherently wrong with an altar call. There are churches that are manipulative about it. And I'm not for that. I'm not for the manipulation. But calling people up for prayer, nothing wrong with that at all. Sure, let's all come up and now we're going to pray for you. I encourage that. That's great. Do I do an altar call every week? No. I think I do an altar call maybe 2-3 times a year. Sure. But I do them. It's just I'm not obsessed with them. And I remember we had one friend that would go up for every single altar call there ever was. And he was not getting any healthier. He was not spiritually growing because he was going up there for the emotion of it. He was going up there because of just being drawn and and he wasn't really understanding the theology, and he wasn't really understanding the discipline that he was being called into. And ultimately, spiritual discipline is more important than just going to an altar call every single time one comes up. It's not just being prayed for, it's also going out there and living out your faith with authenticity. And so when you have someone like Judas, just getting back on topic.
Yes, please.
So that was a welcomed
bunny trail.
I want to call it something nicer than a buy and sell, because I think it was something we needed to talk about. Even though it's not, but it's not about the movie. But Judas, we have a couple of theories about what motivated him. Some people say that he was motivated by a sense of betrayal, that Jesus wasn't acting the way that he thought he would. I've heard others argue that he was motivated by trying to propel Jesus to take a more aggressive role, like trying to force Jesus's hand, but he still
And
believed that he was the Messiah.
he had the military Messiah mentality.
And had the military Messiah mentality, which I kind of like that theory. I think it's nice. But one thing that we know for sure, one thing that we are very certain of, that cannot be ignored and cannot be explained away, is that he was in fact motivated by money. And money is something that is part of this world. It's not part of the kingdom to come. It's not like if I have a bunch of dollars hiding underneath my bed, and then Jesus returns and the new heavens, the new earth is established, that I'm going to take that currency out and it's going to be worth a dime. The dime isn't even going to be worth a dime. It's going to be absolutely worthless, because that money is contingent upon the United States recognizing the value of the money. Even gold is going to transfer. There's that old joke. Man is told he could take one thing to heaven with him, and all the angels get, and he goes like, okay, I'm going to take all this gold that I have. So he goes and he collects all the gold, and then he brings it up to heaven. This is the first man who's ever allowed to bring something from earth up to heaven with him. And then all the angels gather around because they want to see what is it this guy brought, and he shows them all this gold that he had saved up all his life, all these gold bricks. And then they look at it, and then they look up at him with curious eyes, going,
consider all the worlds thy hands have.
This episode of Hey a Movie is brought to you by Earth.
The stars, I hear the rolling thunder.
Your home for everything.
The universe display. Then sings my soul.
Earth is another fine product of Yahweh. Try using.
If your principal concern is money, is cash, then you are in fact obsessed with the physical world, and you're not giving proper heed to the spiritual world. And you look at Cypher, and Cypher is doing exactly the same thing. Instead of choosing 30 coins, he's instead choosing a stake, which fine, I get that. But
with inflation, that's what a good steak costs anyway.
Yeah. Let's face it, but you're still choosing the physical world over God, and that is never a wise choice. It is always better to choose truth. It is always better to choose reality. It is always better to choose God. God being the one thing that's really missing from the analogy of the movie. More depth.
Yep. Sorry, I'm collecting my daddy tax here after Halloween, so I have to make sure it's not poisonous somehow.
No, it's an important responsibility, really, if you think about it. It's just...
And I have another responsibility tonight, because we set the clocks back.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of dads, before I go to bed, I am going to go around the house and change all the clocks that won't automatically set themselves back.
Mm-hmm.
In this modern world, that means 2.
Yeah.
And they're right by each other.
Not nearly. I have to do that clock. All right. Oh, anyway.
I'm gonna have to
Uh,
change my watches too, but
Speaking of
yeah,
being a father, God the Father within
yes,
the movie is represented according to the sequels. We don't really see this in the first movie, but according to the sequels, God the Father will be represented by the Oracle.
correct.
Um, Now, what's interesting though, and meanwhile, the architect would be the demiurge, which is not
Right,
part of
which would
Christian
be the evil
theology.
god of the Old Testament according to Gnostic thought.
Right. And that is not Christian thinking at all. That's not Christian belief, but it's also
No,
not in the first movie. But what is the salvation that is being offered in the Matrix? It's escape from the Matrix. It's escape from the cave. It's not the promise of the scripture. According to the promise of the scripture, what we are being saved from isn't as important as what we're being saved to. If you are in a boiling pot over a stove, the objective isn't to get out of the pot. The objective is to get to a safe location. Is if you are in a war-torn city, your goal isn't to get out of the city. Your goal is to get to a allied nation. That it's not it what matters in terms of rescue isn't where you're leaving, it's the refuge to where you're
it's where you're
going.
going to. Right,
Right. And
right. Christian salvation should never be preached as, come to Jesus so you won't go to hell. It's not about that you. I mean, yeah, that's great too. But
yeah,
far more important is you get to go to the presence of God. You get to be
yeah.
with Jesus. You get to, it's
In
the
fact,
donation and the who.
yeah, there's a principle, the scriptural principle that I call Christ 22, where if there are spiritual things that you want, and you have to do something to get them, and then you do that thing to get them, you don't get what you want. Because in order to get the thing that you want, you have to do the prerequisite for its own sake. For instance, salvation. If your goal of salvation is to, you will not be saved. The point of salvation in accepting Jesus Christ is you need to accept Jesus Christ because you want to be with Christ. And that's the only way to escape hell and go to heaven. So you have to do it for its own sake. You have to do it out of your love for God and your love for Jesus Christ and love for God the Father. There is no real God the Father within the Matrix, because when you get out of the Matrix, there's no God in the real world. The only gods that there are the ones that are in the Matrix itself. So
Right.
and in that way is just a fundamental departure from the Christian worldview and thus also the Christian gospel.
And also the end result is not heaven. I mean,
Yeah.
people miss this so much, even in the church. Like heaven's a
The following segment
pleasant
discusses God's
stopover
genuine desire for the
to where we're
salvation of all and the
ultimately
biblical
spending
fact that God
eternity,
has
which
given
is
man
on
the
a
ability
new
to
earth,
decide to love him back or
populated
not.
only by people.
Calvinist discretion advised.
Not only did Christ died for everyone. It wants to save everyone, but the people who are going to be there are the ones who want to be there too. That Jesus chose them in that he chose everybody. He wants everybody. But he doesn't want the people, but he also doesn't want the people who don't want to be there. If that you don't want to be with him, hell is simply God saying, your will be done. You want to live separate from me? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And here,
whatever form that takes,
think
whether
and think about the inversion of Zion. What is Zion? The real Zion. What is that? It is the mountain that Jerusalem is on. That's what Zion is. It is a mountain that sticks up out of the earth. What is the Zion in the Matrix? It's a hole into the earth. It's a kind of inversion of it. So instead of going up to where God is, you're going down deeper into the earth. And I think that is an embracing of the material world in a way that you are. So like they're trying to, like, in the Matrix worldview, the physical world is the Matrix, and the actual physical world is supposed to be our spiritual world. But the world that you're escaping from is nothing like the world of God. It's nothing like heaven. It is instead this atheistic, fleshing place. And there's nothing wrong with flesh. We're supposed to be in flesh. We're supposed to be indwelt in bodies. But it's not all that we are. We are representatives of God in the world, which I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's weirdly reverse Gnostic too in the Matrix, because you're escaping a better place to go to a worse one.
Yeah. But it's real, and that's kind of the argument. The fact that it's real is what makes it better. There's some truth to that. But
right.
I do think truth is its own good. And that's something that I like about the Matrix. It is the right thing to do, to give up stake for truth. Well, let's actually move on from that for a second and talk about what does it mean for someone to be the Messiah, and what does it mean for Neo to be a messianic figure? Because, like, in reality, in the Bible, there are several messianic figures, but there's only one true Messiah. There's an ultimate Messiah, right? Because what does Messiah mean? I'm assuming you know.
I knew right up until you asked me, and then I forgot. Isn't it like sent one or chosen one, right? No.
It means anointed.
That's elect.
Anointed one.
Anointed.
Right. So one who is anointed with oil. And the anointed one refers to the oil that be poured over the priest or the king when they're being consecrated. So throughout the Old Testament, we're getting this buildup of a figure of what the Messiah is going to look like. We know that he's going to be the son of Adam. We know that he's going to be a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We know that he is going to be a second Moses, which is described in the book of Deuteronomy and etc. That they're going to be, they will raise up among you a prophet like me. Is
and
going
it's
to be
very
another...
interesting, and it's very interesting because there's a dual meaning there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was also speaking of his immediate successor.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, what was his name?
Joshua, son of Joseph, because he is an Ephraimite. So
was his father's name Joseph?
No, his father's name was Nun, but he is still a descendant of Joseph. He is from the tribe of Ephraim.
I didn't catch that. And technically, again, Jesus wasn't by blood the son of Joseph, but there's still the legal. Jesus was the son of Joseph.
Within the rabbinic literature, there's also a messianic figure that is supposed to be a second Joshua. Who right. And there's also of course the son of David. So he's also supposed to be a son of David. You also have a divine figure in the book of Daniel who's going to be called the Son of Man. So you have this building up of this image going on. And each of these figures, as they're being introduced, the first time we meet Solomon, the first time we meet David, the first time we meet Joshua, they're all like, oh, is this going to be the Messiah? And they're like, nope. Like, it looks like he might be, but then he isn't. It looks like he might be, but then he isn't. And with each of these iterations, we end up getting a clearer and clearer picture of what the Messiah is going to be until we get to Jesus. I'm like, oh, this is how it all fits together.
And even then, we haven't seen
one
all
of the
prophecies fulfilled. And this is an argument Jews make because they're just assuming, and the Old Testament never says the Messiah is only going to come one time.
No,
I mentioned this Shawshank episode, I think. that is an argument I've heard Jews make, is that not personally face to face, but in various videos and things like that, is that Jesus couldn't be the Messiah because he didn't fulfill all the prophecies. Well, yeah, he's not done.
Yeah.
He will come back and fulfill the rest. He is right
and
now
we're
putting
very
all
clear that we think that. Like it's not like we're hiding the ball on that point.
No.
And the thing that I'm kind of trying to say here is that the Messiah is not just simply the guy that saves us. He's not just simply the chosen one. He is the fulfillment of a profile that is established through the history of the nation of Israel. And he's the fulfillment of several different motifs that exist throughout the scripture. And Neo barely fits any of them.
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
How is Neo a second Moses? How is Neo a son of David? The best that you've got maybe is Daniel, son of man. But he's nothing like Messiah ben Joseph, I can tell you that much. Maybe Isaiah's suffering servant because he gets shot once. But
and then in the last movie, he has that final battle with.
There you get Isaiah's suffering servant. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah, but even then, he doesn't. He stays dead at the end of the third movie. So,
yeah, he doesn't come back that time. Yeah.
So the first time he comes back, when Jesus comes back, he's not going to die again.
Mm-hmm. So
and neither will anyone else. Once he's done judging the nations, he did. Those of us who are still there we're done. We're there.
So the way that he is like Jesus is that he dies, comes back again, and then saves people. And that's a pretty stripped down Jesus Christ, I think.
Yeah.
And
especially because Jesus is not a he's not a creation inside of the system. He is the creator. He is he is part, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made.
And though according to Luke, Jesus did have to grow in wisdom and understanding in his fleshly self. This gets into the permeation of attributes when dealing with the hypostatic union, which I don't expect anyone listening to this to know the words I just said, but just they're words and they actually mean something. But
I've also been friends with you for almost 25 years.
But in his humanity, he had to learn things, but in his divinity, he didn't have to learn a thing. And when it comes to Neo,
that was in part, I would believe, was in part, the idea of Christ's atoning work did not begin on Good Friday. It did not begin in the garden. It did not begin with the suffering of the passion. Christ's atoning work was everything he ever did. His entire life of being sinless.
It began by being born of a virgin.
Being born of a virgin, being, even though he is the one who created humanity in the flesh, he had to learn how to walk. Yeah. He had to learn how to speak. He had to go through all that stuff. He still had to obey his parents. And at least once made them go out of their minds trying to find him, which I have a moment of panic when my son, steps around to the side yard and I don't know it, So
I should tell you the one time I lost.
You told me you called me after you calmed down and everything was okay. You called me and told me about that with Marty. I remember.
Yeah, he ran away once. Yeah,
Hmm.
he was
And I remember
3. He just went
talking
to the neighbor's yard, but it's just it's also a matter of what it is that Jesus is saving us from, which I think is important. That Jesus is not saving us from the physical world, because the promise of Scripture is not life in heaven. The promise in
right.
Scripture is the resurrection from the dead and eternal life on earth, that we are going to be co-rulers with Christ in the physical world. One of the things that is important to understand is that we are made in the image of God. And what that means is not just simply, hey, we kind of look like God, because guess what? We don't, because God doesn't look like anything. He's a spiritual entity.
Well, the Father doesn't look like anything. The Son
Right.
has a body now.
Right, yeah. And we have a picture of that on the Shroud of Turin. But that aside,
You're coming around on that one, huh?
oh, I've had that opinion for years.
Really? We never,
Yeah.
I've only in the last year really dove into that and said,
Oh, for me, it's
doesn't
been
make
more
sense.
like a decade.
The one thing I find interesting about that is, you know, there are a lot of modern preachers who say Jesus was very average looking. If the shroud is genuine, and depending on the day, I'm between 80 and 90% saying yes, there would have been at least one thing about Jesus that made him pretty darn unique in that culture. He would have been rather tall.
Okay.
Because the height of the man on the shroud is between 5'10" and 6 feet tall in a time when the average man was 5'3" to 5'5". So he would have been pretty darn tall.
That just means he was relatively well fed.
And yes, and that's another modern conceit. People say Jesus was, at least in his upbringing and in his time before his ministry, was not poor. He wasn't rich. He was that society's equivalent of middle class. He was an artisan.
Yeah.
So an artisan would have been a middle class role.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's off the path. But
they would have lived comfortably. They wouldn't have been super poor, no. But what was I saying? So
I don't know. I rarely listen when you talk.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. So when we're talking about being made in the image of God, it does not mean that we look like God. What it means is that we represent God in the world. That we we are the physical representation of God, and that is what we are designed to be. And one of the reasons why God has to take our sin so seriously is because our sin is a corruption of his government. We are supposed to be rulers under God in this on this planet. We're supposed to rule over the plants. We're supposed to rule over the animals. And when I say planet, like I think it extends beyond the planet. I think it's within the universe. We are the physical representations of God, and that's why we're going to co-rule with Christ when we are risen from the dead. And why the saints, when they are in heaven, according to Scripture, they yearn to be reclothed in flesh. Like I'm. Like when I die, should the Lord tarry, then I'm not going to be in heaven going, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to think, I can't wait until we return to the earth, and I'm going to be reclothed in my body, in a body which was better than the one I currently have, and
wouldn't be hard.
And it would not be hard. I mean, I'm an asthmatic, but I wouldn't have asthma after that. I'm really looking forward to that. You know, and
I'll actually be able to run again and not look like a man like running.
Right.
My left leg will be the right length again.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that absolutely wonderful? And that's something to look forward to. That like we are supposed to be embodied. That's what we are supposed to be, and
we were not designed to be right, and we were not designed to be on this fallen, broken world. This is a point I raise all the time. The reason God tells us not to do things is not because he's setting arbitrary rules. He's actually doing it for our protection. Sin actually damages us. Sin actually hurts us. We are hurting creation when we sin. And that's why death entered the world and things went bad when Adam and Eve ate. As I was thinking about this review and then also thinking about looking at my toolbox as I was getting the right tools out, I have tools in my toolbox that I could use for the wrong purpose. I have a big, heavy plumber's wrench in my toolbox. Now, it's awesome at wrenching things. That's its purpose in life. It belonged to my grandfather. It's a Craftsman, so I could actually use it as a hammer. And if I managed to break it, Craftsman Tools or whoever owns that label now would send me a new one because it's guaranteed for life.
I was actually going to tell that joke.
But I could still break the wrench if I used it for a hammer. I could also use it to stir a pot of soup or chili or sauce.
Sounds gross to me, but
would
okay.
in fact, it would be disgusting because I have actually used it on pipes.
Yeah.
So, but back to using it as a hammer, if I use that tool for something I'm not supposed to use it for, it's far more likely to break than if I only keep to wrenching with it. And I'm damaging the tool by using it for the wrong purpose. That's why God says to us, when it comes to our sexuality, it belongs within a biblical marriage and that commitment and nowhere else. And a biblical marriage means man and woman, not man and man, not woman and woman. And that's misusing your body for what it's designed for. You are misusing that tool, just like if I use a wrench for a hammer, I'm misusing that wrench. And it can break.
I'd say, but I'd also say that our bodies are more than just tools. They are what we are designed to be. Paul's analogy he uses two analogies to describe our bodies. One as raiment, as clothes, and the other as a house.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely raiment. Yeah, definitely raiment.
Thank you.
Raiment. Raiment. Yeah, definitely raiment.
Well, I'm actually going more for the house.
246.
Because he says when it comes to particular body, it's like a house, but then the new body would be like a mansion. And that is the intention that God has for us, that this physical world. And my whole reason for bringing this up again goes back to the Matrix. Is the Matrix a representation of Christianity? And the answer fundamentally is no, because it does not speak about the gospel. It presents God inaccurately, which is kind. It is a stripped down version of Jesus, and it's absent of the real gospel. And it has more Play-Doh in it than one of those little yellow plastic container things.
Yeah, it's more Play-Doh in it than Augustinian theology too. I mean, and that's the problem there is, the idea that the real world, the flesh is innately evil, that using your body the way God designed it to be used, specifically with sex, is evil.
That's a bad Augustine. That's a naughty, naughty Augustine. No! Don't do that again.
Our bodies are good things. Our bodies are designed by God, and they are not something to be escaped from. And the world is not something to be escaped from. It's something to be redeemed along with the rest of us.
Yes, and that's another one of those bad ideas that he got from the what'd you call them again? The Manichaeans,
the Mashtikians.
Mashtikians. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Was it too soon for a callback, Norm?
No, I think that worked.
All right, good. That's another bad thing Augustine brought into the church. And Martin has some respect for the guy. I have very little for the man. And on the off chance his faith was genuine, I'll tell him so. I'm not overly confident about him. But a lot of things that
We
he brought into
apologize
the
for this
church
second interruption.
have led a
Scolding
lot of
Augustine
people
once was
astray.
insufficient.
It led to a lot of bad
No.
Catholic theology, and it is
No.
also the root of Calvinism.
That's a bad Augustine. That's a naughty, naughty Augustine. No! Don't do that again.
Which, by the way, formerly condemned heresy. And it was formerly condemned at a synod in Jerusalem by the Eastern Orthodox Church, where Calvinists had a chance to actually speak and vote. Which is why it was unlike the Kangaroo Court of Dort, which literally they were just trying to argue which kind of Calvinism we were going to be. And I just want to let you know, Calvinists, that we at the Society of Evangelical Arminians, we had our own synod a few years back. Martin, you may remember this. And it was very brief because no Calvinists were invited, and only Arminians got to vote. And anyway, we declared you to be heretics. So if Dort counts, so does the Facebook poll. And it was the Synod of Trod, which I convened in 2022 or 2023. I was trying to remember what I called it. It was a Synod of Trod. And,
That's good.
Yeah, and we just if I can find that poll, I will add it in post-production, because it may sound silly, but the questions I asked literally left no option.
And yes, Calvinists, we do accept you as our brothers and sisters in the Lord. We are not saying that you weren't Christian. We're just saying that you're wrong. You're
just horribly wrong. And you know what? Yeah. It's not the kind of thing I'm going to live and let live about either, because if my mother is visiting from New York right now. I love my mother. I think very highly of my mother. And Mom, this would be a wonderful time for you to get up and go. Yeah, she's great. She's not perfect, but she is a wonderful mother, has always been a wonderful mother, to me, and I adore her. Now, there are errors somebody could make about regarding my mother that I would shrug my shoulders at. If somebody accidentally referred to my mom by the name Sally, I would just correct you, because there is nothing innately evil or bad about the name Sally versus the name Susan. I'm just going to correct you and move on with my life. And if you call her Sally again, I'm just going to correct you again. It's not that important. If, however, I were to find out that somebody was telling people that who my mother truly is a person who runs an illegal dogfighting ring in her basement, you will be lucky to get off with a punch in the face from me. Because now you're attributing evil to my mother. And that is why I am going to be very sternly opposed to that teaching about my mother. And I'm very sternly opposed to the Calvinist teachings about God. That God, as I presented in a cutaway last episode, of Dark Helmet playing with his dolls, you are minimizing someone I love dearly. You are making someone I love dearly into a child and not a loving father who I know and love. And I'm not going to just pretend that that's no big deal.
So with that, we should probably talk about our ratings for the movie.
Yes, let's go into our ratings. So, 1 to 5 as a movie, how would you rate The Matrix?
So if we're just sticking to the first movie,
Just the first movie, yeah.
I'm going to give the first movie a 5 stars.
Really?
Yeah, not 5. Well, you know what? Maybe not 5. Let's go with let's just go with 4 3/4.
Okay.
I mean, it's not quite like one of the best movies of all time, but it is just a staple of the genre. It is
Mhm.
an excellent film. Even the few things that we've been critical of here in terms of filmmaking, like I was just agreeing with you about those things. Like I think I don't really think there are any errors or plot holes
Okay.
within the movie. I think
And that was
it's
more me being a smart aleck, honestly,
yeah.
about the cubicle wall.
I mean, it's really the only way you get to be smart. So it just kind of goes along. You know, it's fairly forgivable for that reason.
You're lucky we're not in the same place. I'd make you smart.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about this, and when I first saw the movie, I would have given the movie probably a solid 4-star rating. Watching it back, I'm going to have to take it back just a little bit. I did feel like on some level there was a bit of playing with toys going on. We have this new technology and we're going to use it. I'm not going to dial it back that hard, though. So I'll dial it back to a 3 3/4. I still think it's a very good movie. I would consider it a solid A minus. I'm not going to go over the line to 4 because I just it wasn't quite, it didn't hit quite as well as it did when I was a kid. And ironically, Angels in the Outfield hit me just fine last week because I went in expecting a Big Mac, not a steak. And the problem is with Matrix for me now versus when it came out 26 years ago is that I remembered it as a steak, and I went back. It wasn't a Big Mac. It was like a good quality restaurant hamburger, but it was still a hamburger.
Like Red Robin or something.
Your standard for what qualifies as good food never ceases to amaze me. But
well, sticking with a burger. Sticking with burgers.
I can stick with burgers and come up with a dozen better places to get a hamburger, none of which are chains.
Yes, but no one's going to know what I'm referencing. Go on, move on.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to dial it back to 3 3/4. I still think it's a very good movie. It's a great hamburger. It's just not a steak for me. Now let's go to what I'm sure will be the harsher rating from both of us. Biblical accuracy. How would you rate The Matrix?
I have to give Matrix props for bringing spirituality into the discussion, and to be honest, I would like to see more movies like The Matrix that attempts to actually interact seriously with spiritual ideas. And for that, I want to rank it higher than a 2. So 2 1/4.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to put Matrix on that because you're right. It did open up a lot of discussions. However, there have been some films that have done a horrible job of representing Christianity that also opened up spiritual discussions. Think the Da Vinci Code, or it's even more horribly inaccurate, brother film Nicaea. That one was even worse. I mean, I'd give that one negative stars. Probably will.
Do you even have to review those? Let's just give them 1 star and just be done with it, and I have to. Yeah.
I'm gonna try and come up with a negative. I don't know. We could probably let Da Vinci Code go because it's also just an awful movie, and I have no desire to watch it again. I watched it once just to find out how awful it was.
But they're propaganda films.
Well, Nicaea was so bad that it's almost comically bad. I mean, just the stupid crap they put in, like Saint Nicholas showing up with 8 horses in a sleigh. I mean, it's like, oh God, can we not? I mean, but it's so bad and so theologically horrible that we might be able to have some fun with it. Anyway, so for Matrix, I'd put it at a 2 for getting the spiritual conversation going, but then I have to take something away from them for how badly they presented Christianity. I'd start them at a 2. I'd maybe kick them up to 3 for getting the spiritual conversation going, but then they got it going in such a bad direction that I have to take the point off again. So I guess I'll give it a 2. Only because now I know so much and it's so gnostic and so pop Christianity History Channel documentary during Easter that I'm going to have to give it a 2.
I think that's fair. I think I very much think that that's fair.
So, okay. Well, that concludes our episode for this week. Thanks for tuning in to Hey a Movie. And, by the way, I haven't said this yet, but please, if you enjoy what you're seeing, please subscribe to us at Hey a Movie Podcast on YouTube. Share our videos. By the time this comes out, we'll have started putting out some shorts as well with some of those little funny clips we put in the middle of these discussions. So please share it around and
also,
leave us a comment too.
Yeah, please actually join in the discussion down below in the doobly-doo. And you can say what it is that you think about our critiques, maybe make some of your own, and maybe even say what you'd like to see us, other movies you'd like to see us do.
If you have suggestions, because we're always looking for suggestions. We have a pretty good list, but we're always open to more. If you know a movie that takes place during Thanksgiving that we could release next year on Thanksgiving, because at this point we're past that by the time you suggested to us, that would be good too. It would be nice to have an idea of something we could do for Thanksgiving, because all I've got is planes, trains, and automobiles, and that is not a spiritual theme at all. No. So for now, thanks for tuning in for episode 5 of Hey a Movie. I'm Chris Bastito.
And I'm Martin Glenn.
And tune in next week where we will be reviewing.
There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see. Hey a Movie. Is there any way to stop it? Starring everybody. Everybody, yes.